Okay everyone, so this is essentially like a series of topics that are random across the BME manual, and I'm just picking out certain topics that I find that students tend to struggle with. So the first one, Potter's five forces Potter's five forces model, right? So this is from your chapter on strategic management. So remember what Potter's is used for? Well, it's used for essentially, it is actually used in your environmental scan, right? So along with Potter's, I hope you guys can remember the other two models that we use to scan the environment. You are probably very familiar with the other two, SWOT analysis and pest analysis. Okay, so normally students tend to struggle with Potter's five forces. So this video, I'm going to show you how to understand Potter's five forces. I won't go into too much detail because you're supposed to already know by now, but instead this is going to help you in terms of answering WAIS exam questions. Okay, so let's just quickly take a look at the five forces. So you have there in the middle, competitive rivalry. You've got threat of new entry. You have buyer's power, or we call bargaining power bias. You have threat of substitution and supplier's bargaining power. Now, what is the difference between, let's say, competitive rivalry, I think students are always confused, and threat of new entry? Okay, so very simple. Competitive rivalry is, right now, what is the industry like? Is it very intense in terms of competition? Or is it still a very small industry, it's just growing and competition is relatively low? Okay, so that's competitive rivalry. What is it like now? Threat of new entry. So when you guys hear the word threat, it's just the possibility of something bad. Okay, so it may not happen yet, but you are sort of like foreseeing. So in Potter's five forces, when we talk about threat of new entry, it means what are the chances that once after you are already joining the industry, what are the chances that there will be more and more competitors entering? Okay, so there's a difference here. In a way, competitive is like present. Threat of new entry is likely future. Okay, so that's to help you understand the difference between these two. Alright, so let's quickly jump on to the example that I have prepared for you guys. Looks familiar, right? Yeah, it should look familiar. So here you have Sarah. Okay, Sarah has just started her own business. Her business is located in Australia. So most of the times likely they'll give you the market as Australia, but it's good also to read up on other countries. It's good to know like a few examples. I will recommend a few later after this. So Sarah makes healthy homemade juices and sells them to customers who orders her products online. So this is what she's already doing, but here she is considering expanding her business and opening a juice kiosk. So it's very obvious here what industry you have to analyze. Remember, Potter's five forces is analyzing industry's level of competitiveness, not business, industry. Okay, so discuss in detail the following forces Sarah's business will face if it were to enter the industry, according to Potter's five forces model. So sometimes exams, they will actually give you what they exactly want. Alright, so we will analyze based on this and I'll tell you how to get marks. Alright, so let's just understand the question. I realize this is what students sometimes struggle with, actually just understanding the question. Okay, here we have this Sarah. She is intending to start a new business. She already has some background in selling her juices online, but she's actually thinking of opening a kiosk. A kiosk is like a small stall, like a booth, like the ones we have in Sunway, the juice lab. Okay, so she's thinking of joining essentially what industry? It's essentially the juice industry, which is part of the food and beverage industry, right? Okay, so remember this is in Australia. So a lot of students tend to be confused when we talk about, let's just start with one, Potter's five forces. So students tend to think that supplier refers to Sarah herself. That is false. The supplier here is a supplier to the industry that you are analyzing. So always remember, we are analyzing the industry. Right. So in this situation, who are the suppliers of this industry that Sarah wants to enter? I think it's fairly obvious, right? It's essentially anyone who sells fruits. Okay. So sometimes it can also be like equipment, juicing equipment and stuff, but fruit is a very obvious supplier, so we are going to go with fruits. Okay. So you can, if you don't know the name of people who sell fruits, just say fruit supplier. Very simple. Okay. Alright. So what is the meaning of bargaining power? So remember, supplier, person selling to the industry obviously want to earn money, right? So it's how much control, defined first, suppliers have over prices. These suppliers will obviously, if can, they want to charge high prices. Then they earn money. Okay, so if they have that ability to charge high prices, means their bargaining power very high. They got leverage. They got power, right? So in this case, what do you guys think? Bargaining power of suppliers, high or low? What do you think about number of suppliers here? So most likely in Australia, there are plenty of people selling fruits. Remember, it's also a very agricultural country. They have a lot of fruits. They have a lot of land to plant fruits, and they have a lot of their own tropical fruits. As in their local fruits. Okay, so sorry, not tropical. They're local fruits. So here you can say that essentially bargaining power of suppliers for this industry is actually high because there's so many of them. Let me rephrase. Bargaining power of suppliers is actually low. Okay, because remember, there's so many of them, so it doesn't matter to the industry who they buy from. So because of that, their prices have to be in a way controlled. They cannot charge too high. If charge too high, their customers, this juice industry, will not buy from them, will just buy from another supplier since got so many of them. Okay, so this is low. Okay, I hope you understand why it's low here. Bargaining power of suppliers for this case is low. Alright. Now, the question asks for second, Potter's force. Threat of new entry. So this is, what is the likelihood? How easy is it for future competitors to join this juice industry? So Sarah is actually projecting. She's thinking ahead. Right? So how likely is it that after Sarah joins, there'll be more and more competitors? Because she has to consider the future too. So in this case, it is high. Okay, there's a high threat of new entry. Why? Because food and beverage industry is very easy to enter. Tom, Dick and Harry can enter this industry. As long as you know how to operate a juice machine, you can enter the food industry, the juice industry. And for food and beverage, to be honest, it's considered quite low capital. Meaning, you don't need that much model to start your own business making juices. Even like Sarah, she probably has already earned a little bit of money from her online business, so enough for her to open a kiosk. Okay, so it's easy for other people to do the same thing also. So threat of new entry here is high. Alright, so that's how you explain. So guys, what do you think about, in this case, the bargaining power of buyers? So the question doesn't ask this, but you should always try to think about it. So okay, so for Australians, for the buyers, to be honest, they have high bargaining power. So buyers, obviously, they want the ability to drive down the product price. So if they can do that, like you and I, right? Buyer, we want to buy cheap juice, not expensive juice. The cheaper and the higher the quality, the better, if it can be at the same time. Okay, so how much control buyers have to drive down the product price? So different from suppliers, opposite. So in this case, the buyer has a lot of potential of driving down the product price, because how hard is it for them to change from Sarah's business to another business? It's very easy because there are so many available. This is what we call switching cost is low. If they don't like Sarah's business, they can easily go to Boost Juice. They can easily switch to a different juicer. Okay, so they have, and there's also so many of them. Alright, so they have the ability to exert that kind of pressure. And it's so easy nowadays to just check online whose stall is selling like the best juice, the cheapest juice. Okay, right. So that's bargaining power of buyers. Another force is threat of substitution. So you have to define substitution. Alright, check your manual for that. You should know by now how to define all of this. So threat of substitution for the industry. Alright, so if you don't drink juice, what can you drink? Essentially, That's what it means. So if you don't drink juice, you can still drink soda, Coca-Cola, coffee, water, tea, right? There's so many types of substitution. So the threat of substitution is really high. It's very easy for a person to choose not to drink juice and drink something else. Okay? And if you were to look at competitive rivalry, I didn't write it down here, but it essentially means, what is the juice industry like today in Australia? And I would say it is fairly high in competitive rivalry because you have so many Australian juice products, and the most famous that we know obviously is Boost Juice. Alright, so that's how you interpret. Now, I want you guys to do this at home. Think about, maybe research if you have extra time, think about these following industries and see if you can come up with the bargaining power of suppliers, buyers, threat of new entry and substitution, and competitive rivalry for these three industries. So you have the dairy industry in China. What do you guys think about it? Dairy means selling like milk, cheese products. Okay. You have the cosmetics industry, makeup, beauty care. Okay. Let's consider the market in Japan. So you can see from country to country, the same industry can be very different. And airlines industry, which means you'll be competing with AirAsia, competing with Mars Airlines. Okay. So what do you guys think about the Potter's 5 forces for these industries? So try to jot down some thoughts, and then you can actually just Google to find out the answers. Google, yeah. I don't know why students don't like to take their own initiative to Google. Just Google, you can find the answers, trust me, okay? Alright. Now, how to answer waste questions regarding Potter's 5 forces. To get your marks, you have to define the force, alright? So make sure you know all the definitions, like all this. So bargaining power of suppliers means how much control suppliers will have over prices, and suppliers tend to want to push prices up. Okay, so define that. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's the only way you can get marks. Okay, define the force. Identify if it's high or low. Okay, so do not use words like if this happened, then like that, like that. If that happens, then like that, like that. Okay, if they give you a case, make a stand. Decide. Is it high or is it low? Like in Sarah's case, we are talking about facts. Okay, high and low. So when do you not need to do this? When can you just use like if A then B, if B then C, that kind of thing? You can just answer based on theory, like you studied in your manual, if they are just asking you for the theory. If they don't give you a business example, they don't give you a market, nothing, then you can actually just provide them with the theory. Okay? So when there is a case, make sure you make a decision. Right. So the second one is very simple. Why do you say it's high? Why do you say it's low? So you actually will be able to answer this because the theory will help you tell. Okay, so for example, bargaining power of suppliers is always high if there are few of them. Right? So that's the theory that you already know. So that is how you can reason out some of your answers. So do make sure your foundation and theory for this part is strong enough. Alright? So that is all for this topic on Potter's 5 forces. I hope the video helps you guys prepare for your exams. Thank you.